concerning UFOs. They are scientists exploring new worlds. This is what an American Indian says, sharing his encounters with quote unquote star people. We know that Native American Indians, in their legends and news passed on from one generation to the other, called them the Anu, and that they were very loving people, loving extraterrestrials, tall, white, fair skinned, and bearded as well, and that they gave them the law of their gods. This is by Steve McCamley on Collective Spark. Stories of star people are well documented in Native Canadian and Native American lore, and here we explore the story he's done many times before in more examples from the work of Dr. R.D. Clark, the Professor Emeritus at Montana State University, who is Cherokee Choctaw. Please support my Patreon channel since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. My Patreon channel will have 5 different videos from my YouTube channel every day. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. And she has been researching the star people and collecting encounters between them and Native American Indians for many years. She also grew up being told about the star people from her family and the elders. She's written multiple books documenting her research, and this particular one is taken from her book, Encounters with Star People, Untold Stories of American Indians. And the story here comes from Clark's encounter with a man named Russell, a Native Indian and a Vietnam War veteran who grew up being abused as at a religious boarding school. The discussion between them began. It was the boarding school. I was about 7. The priest took me to the chapel. Now, he said I would stay there all day unless I spoke English. And I remember how salty my tears tasted, and I worried that I would have to go to the bathroom, and suddenly a light appeared outside the chapel window, and a being appeared. At first, I thought it was one of the older boys coming to rescue me, but instead, as I was to learn, it was no older boy, but a star traveler. He picked me up, held me close, and we walked right through the wall like it was not there. He helped me escape, he said. Clark then asked him to describe the star traveler. He said they were robot-like, more like bugs than men, but I was so happy to be out of the chapel and away from those priests that I didn't care. The devil himself could have taken me to hell and I would have been happy. I think these star travelers were watching the school. Maybe my old man was right. They do watch after us. Anyway, they taught me mind control. They helped me learn to live with pain and to survive in isolation. Clark asked, how did they do that? And Russell said, I don't know, but after that first incident, I never felt pain again. I could have knelt for 58 hours, for 58 hours on that chapel floor, and I just felt nothing, he said. When I went to Vietnam and was captured, I felt no pain. I had learned to dissociate myself from my body and not feel pain, he said. I think the star people understood me. They knew when the stress was becoming too much for me, that's when they would come. I always went willingly, not because I particularly liked them, but because I could get away from a more uncomfortable situation. And Clark stated, did you mean going with the star people was more comfortable than staying in school or the army or in prison? And he said, yes, yes, yes. And if I were with them, I was in control. They taught me mind control, and I learned to use it again against them. In fact, they found my ability to use mind control quite interesting. Before I cooperated with them, I made them do things for me. And we were in a prison camp, very little food. I made them bring me fruit. In boarding school, they took away my meals a lot. In the prison camp, none of us got enough food, so I would insist that they get fruit for me. Oranges, apples, bananas. That's when I learned that I could turn the tables on them when I was able to suggest that I needed fruit, and it appeared. Clark asked, in return for fruit, what did you have to do for them? Submit to their physical exams, allow them to collect sperm or whatever samples they needed. They did experiments on my eyes and nose, exposed my eyes to varied liquids, various degrees of light. They do not have eyes like ours or noses. I think they find our eyes curious. They took a lot of blood from me, he said. He then explained that they taught him how to control his pain and described the procedure. He says, there are panels and they set you inside them. The panels move. One part moves in one direction, the other in another direction. They move faster and faster until you become one with the panels. And after that, you feel no pain. Clark then asks, explain this to me. If they could come and get you, why didn't they help you escape the prison and return you to the reservation? After all, the military would have just thought you were missing in action. I could have chosen that route, perhaps. I never explored it, he said. When you're in a prison camp, there is a camaraderie that develops with survival. There is no way I could leave behind my buddies, and there was no way the Star People would have removed all of them to safety. They have some kind of principles about not interfering with lives if it will change the course of history. I don't think that my life would have changed history, but there was one guy I was with that became a politician. Another became a CEO of a big company. So maybe removing them would have made them different people. I just somehow understood that this was not an option and was not something I wanted. Just having them come to me was enough of a relief from being a prisoner. They made it manageable, he said. Clark asks, why do you think Star People abduct humans? I think they are scientists exploring new worlds, he said. Clark then asks, do you see them as good or evil? He says, I saw them as good when they rescued me, but I saw an evil side too. I saw them hurt people without teaching them how to control pain. They didn't seem to care. He explained that he saw them abduct many people, quote, but most when I was in the military, several times they would take everyone in our barracks. They even took our guns, end quote. Clark asks, what did they do with your guns? And Russell said, just examine them. They never kept them. When they returned us to the barracks, none of the guys had any memory of the event. I always thought that was strange. I mentioned it to one guy once when he asked me if I was trying to pretend insanity to get out of the service. He told me it would not work. So final thoughts. I've been into the topic this for many years, more than 15 years, and I can tell you that the lore, not just from American Indian stories, but from all cultures, is filled with experiences with what seems to be benevolent beings. That being said, there are also stories of the opposite, or at least what we perceive to be the opposite. When it comes to mainstream UFO disclosure, which has not yet been associated with the extraterrestrial phenomenon as much, characterizing the behavior of these objects as a threat seems to be an issue among many, and you could read more about this in the link here. And based on what I looked into, I believe there are multiple races from elsewhere that have visited our planets and others, but who knows? When it comes to stories of the Star People from Clark's book, like many other supposed contact experiences, there are many similarities and corroborations between these experiences with minor differences. I find the consistency among stories quite interesting. But again, there are differences, and if you read her book or the articles I publish sharing stories from her book, you'll see what I mean. At the end of the day, this topic, whether it be explored lore or sifting through declassified documents and or high-ranking testimony, opens up many more questions that go far beyond are we alone and have we been visited? The fascinating topic, no doubt, one that I believe is a strange and unexplained connection to human beings waking up and asking more questions about what it is we do here on our planet, why do we do it, and realizing that we as a collective have an unlimited amount of potential to create a human experience where everybody can thrive. So if you're interested in more articles of UFO and extraterrestrial subjects, you can find them in the link here. This was from Collective Evolution, published here under Creative Commons on Collective Spark. Thank you for your support, and please leave your comments. Thank you.